Hi there, welcome back to Mudwalkers. My name is Chris. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Check out my Patreon link in the description. I say hit the subscribe button because the subscribe button actually helps me a lot. Most of you are not subscribed. Anyway, I saw this article a few years ago and I'm finally making a video about it, so let's take a look. It's from a website called Got Questions, which is a website I don't generally recommend, but I did leave a link in the description down below if you want to check it out for yourself. Let's get started. Many pagan cultures throughout history considered public nudity normative, especially Spartan, Greek, and Roman societies. I find it super interesting that they only mention Greco-Roman culture, when if you look at it historically and anthropologically, you find a staggering abundance and variety of cultures across the ancient world in which public nudity was pretty normal. This is true across Europe, including the British Isles. It's true across Africa, especially Egypt, of course. But you also find it across the ancient Near East. Check out this link here, where I did a video about that. It was also pretty common in Asia, including Japan, believe it or not. They actually used to do their bathing, used to take baths out on the sidewalk in front of their houses in the city, where everyone could see them outdoors. And, one time a European visitor came along and said, hey guys, that's kind of gross and wrong and stuff. You guys don't think of it that way? And immediately, a Japanese person called that guy a creep. And how can we forget Australia with all their indigenous peoples? Obviously there's a lot of nudity there. Or the islands out in the Pacific, all the way from the Philippines to Hawaii. Speaking of Hawaii, the first time Europeans ever discovered Hawaii, the first thing they saw was a bunch of people riding on tidal waves, standing on a bunch of wooden planks, but they were all naked. Men, women, and children were all on these weird wooden standy things on top of the waves, hint, hint. But the Europeans could not believe their eyes. Not only were these people doing something that seemed like sorcery, perhaps, but they were all naked, which understandably the Europeans found horrifying. But I mean, this is just a bunch of indigenous peoples chilling. They're just out there having fun. And by the way, nowadays we call that surfing. Did you know that was an indigenous invention? Oh, and you find lots of anthropological discoveries across North and South America. Think Amazonian tribe, and you can picture it, where European explorers found tribe after tribe that seemed pretty chill about seeing people naked. It was very normal for them, regardless of age or gender. So limiting the cultures mentioned to the Greco-Roman region is extremely limited and potentially misleading. Because nakedness being normal isn't a Greco-Roman thing, it's a human thing. Across human history, all over the globe, it's been pretty normal. We're the weird ones because we have a problem with this thing that practically everyone else in the ancient world was pretty chill about, including ancient Israel, by the way, in a lot of cases. In more recent years, public nudity has become more and more acceptable, with many groups promoting a back to nature philosophy and the supposed health benefits of taking off one's clothes. Nudists, or naturists, form clubs, frequent clothing-free beaches, and engage in activities ranging from hiking to horseback riding au naturel. Can't disagree there. Sounds pretty legit. Although the world's standards may permit or even encourage nudity, the Bible has a different perspective. It is true that the first humans were created unclothed by God, Genesis 2:25. Adam and Eve were innocent in their nakedness, but after the fall, everything changed. When they sinned, the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. Genesis 3:7. Never before had they realized they were unclothed. The concepts of clothed and unclothed were meaningless to them. Sin affected their hearts and minds, creating vulnerability, guilt, and shame, and these things produced fear. Okay, hold up, time out. The only verse you cited for that was Genesis 3:10, which says Adam felt afraid. So where'd you get all that other stuff about sin, guilt, shame, and the upper reaches of the human mind? Because it's not in Genesis. At no point does any biblical passage ever ascribe shame to Adam or Eve. That's from Genesis to Revelation. Yes, after Adam sinned, he did say he was personally terrified of meeting Yahweh after Adam had sinned. But jamming the word shame in there where the text doesn't mention it feels like eisegesis. In their attempt to cover their spiritual shame, Adam and Eve intuitively covered their bodies. Again, they just kind of stick the word shame in there where the text didn't say it. And now a word from today's sponsor. This episode of Mudwalkers has been brought to you by my generous supporters over on Patreon. Shout out to Nature Him, Todd, Alex M, Edward, John S, Joseph, Charlie, Lionheart, Adam, Edward T, Jay Good, Cyan, John W, Clifton, None Here, Alan M, Andrew K, Marty, Austin S, Martin C, Benjamin M, Queerbo, Tony S, Randy L, this person, JLDL, David H, Chris, Lamont W, Gary, Corky S, Michael M, Kenneth L, John F, Jeremy H, G10, Richard M, and PJ H. Guys, thank you so much for your support on Patreon. You're making all this possible. This channel will not be where it is right now without your support, so thank you. And like I said before, you can find that information in the description below for my Patreon page. With that, let's get back to the video. We should note that when God took away their fig leaves, a sadly inadequate covering, he replaced them with something more permanent, animal skins. Thus, God regarded clothing as appropriate and necessary in a fallen world. Ancient Egypt and the Bible actually has a great video on that right where? Here? Yes, the leaves were inadequate, but maybe not for the reasons that you think. They were hopelessly uncomfortable, they were fragile, they were not very protective. So all in all, yeah, less than ideal. Nudity now has implications of sinfulness attached to it. With few exceptions, the Bible presents nakedness as shameful and degrading. The only passages in which nudity is free of shame are those that describe Eden's idyllic setting or that deal with marital relations. Okay, what? The article cites a bunch of passages here talking about nakedness and shame. Granted, those passages do exist. But where are the verses that say that nakedness is a sin? The article doesn't mention any because they don't exist. We still live in a fallen world, surrounded by lust, immorality, and perversion. The innocence of Eden is gone. Naturist philosophy ignores the results of the fall. Even in asexual contexts, public displays of nudity dishonor God by pretending an innocence that no longer exists. Of course we live in a fallen world, but what is it about the fall that we're ignoring? Yes, thorns exist, we have diseases, we age, we die. We don't deny or ignore the fall. What we do deny are moral mandates that go beyond the pages of Scripture and lay an unreasonable load on people that God never placed on us. Which is what this "don't let anyone ever see you naked" rule definitely is. A Christian should definitely not be a nudist or participate in nudist activities. The article provided literally nothing to support this claim, so I can't abide by that prohibition. But before you go, let's talk about shame for a sec. Yes, the Bible occasionally associates nakedness with shame, but that's not the same thing as claiming that something is morally wrong. We know that because of all of these things. Every last one of those is also associated with shame in the Bible. Are they wrong too? No. Okay, well then shame isn't enough to show that something is wrong in itself. Which means we need something more than just shame to show that nudism is immoral. So this is really a Romans chapter 14 issue. Don't condemn people for living in their Christian freedom. What God hasn't forbidden, don't forbid. Follow me on social media, especially Vimeo. The links are in the description. Bye!